The baby grabbed the dog's fur and started crying. At first, it seemed like nothing more than a startled whimper. Babies cry all the time. But this time, the sound was sharp, panicked, and sudden. A cry that cut through the room like glass. Their golden retriever, Max, didn't move. He stood completely still, eyes wide, ears pinned back. Not in fear, but in something else. His gaze locked on the baby, his tail stiff, his breathing shallow. Hannah, the baby's mother, turned at the sound and froze. Her daughter, Ava, only 6 months old, sat on the playmat. One tiny fist clutched in Max's fur, the other balled tightly against her chest. Her face was scrunched, not just in pain, but in fear. Then Max did something he had never done before. He let out a single, soft whine, and slowly lowered himself beside her. What he did next stopped both parents in their tracks, and brought tears to their eyes. Hannah and Ryan lived in a quiet, 2-story home just outside of Portland. They had recently welcomed their first child, a baby girl named Ava. Life had shifted overnight, from quiet dinners and weekend getaways to sleepless nights and lullabies. But they embraced it fully. Helping them through the transition was Max, their gentle golden retriever who had been with them for nearly 7 years. Max had always been calm, intuitive, and deeply attached to Hannah. During her pregnancy, he never left her side. When Ava was born, Max took his new role seriously. He would sleep by the crib, follow the stroller from room to room, and sniff the baby gently before settling down nearby. He was more than a pet. He was family. They trusted Max completely. He had never barked at Ava, never snapped, never shown a hint of discomfort around her. But over the past few days, something changed. Max had become quieter, more withdrawn. He stared at Ava for long periods, ears tilted forward, head slightly cocked, like he was trying to understand something no one else noticed. And then, earlier that afternoon, when Ava grabbed his fur and began to cry, Max didn't pull away. He lay down and gently rested his head beside her. After the incident on the playmat, Hannah couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Max had always been responsive, perking up when his name was called, wagging his tail when anyone entered the room. But now he barely reacted. He followed Ava around silently, his eyes never leaving her, like a shadow glued to her every move. That evening, as Ava sat in her high chair flinging bits of mashed banana onto the floor, Max didn't move to catch a single piece. Instead, he stood a few feet away, watching her with that same fixed intensity, ears forward, head low, completely still. Maybe he's just getting old, Ryan offered, but even he didn't sound convinced. The next morning, they found Max already sitting by Ava's crib before she woke up. His eyes were red, and he let out a soft, almost mournful whimper when Hannah reached to pet him. Concerned, they took Max to the vet. He was examined from head to tail, blood work, joint flexibility, vision, hearing. Everything came back clean. He's perfectly healthy, the vet said. Maybe a little stressed. Could be adjusting to the baby's presence, even now. But Hannah knew it wasn't that. It wasn't the baby that had changed. It was Max. That night, they set up a camera in the nursery, hoping to make sense of the strange tension. What they saw chilled them. Around 2 a.m., Max entered the room, circled the crib once, and sat beside it, staring up at the mattress. For over an hour, he didn't move. Just sat there, breathing slowly, ears twitching slightly. At one point, he stood up, rested his front paws gently against the crib's frame, and let out a low, trembling whine. Then he laid back down, eyes never leaving Ava. In the morning, Hannah showed the footage to Ryan. "What is he doing?" she asked, her voice cracking. Ryan couldn't answer. They brought in a dog behaviorist, hoping for clarity. After watching the footage, the trainer simply said, "He's sensing something." Dogs pick up on changes, scent, energy, breathing patterns. He's not afraid. He's worried. Worried about what? Hannah asked, but there was only silence. Hannah sat on the edge of the bed, hands trembling in her lap, eyes heavy from another sleepless night. The baby monitor flickered on the nightstand beside her, showing Max curled up outside Ava's crib, unmoving. "He doesn't sleep," she whispered. "He just watches her." Ryan stood near the window, arms folded, staring into the early morning fog. He hadn't said much lately. The tension in the house was unbearable, made worse by the growing fear neither of them wanted to say out loud. What if something's wrong with him? Hannah finally said, her voice cracking. What if he snaps? She hated the words the moment they left her mouth, but they hung there, heavy and undeniable. Ryan didn't respond right away. When he did, it was barely a whisper. He's never heard her, hon. He's just different. But fear is a powerful thing. Max's behavior, as quiet and gentle as it had been, was beginning to feel unpredictable. The way he stared, the way he hovered, the way he seemed to know something they didn't. Hannah cried that night in the hallway, curled up with her arms around her knees. He's always protected her, she sobbed. But now, it feels like he's warning us. And I don't know what he's trying to say. Neither of them did. It was just past 3 a.m. when the barking started. Hannah jolted awake, heart pounding. She reached for the baby monitor, static. The screen was black. Then came the second bark, louder, desperate, sharp like a siren through the silence. Ryan, she shouted, scrambling from bed. They both rushed down the hall, their bare feet thudding against the floor. As they neared the nursery, the barking intensified. Max was inside, standing on his hind legs, paws pressed against the side of the crib. He was barking directly at Ava, deep, urgent, panicked. Hannah flung the door open. Max, get down. But Max didn't listen. He turned, locked eyes with her, then let out a guttural, almost pleading whine. Then he looked back at Ava and barked again, short, frantic. Ava wasn't crying. She wasn't moving. Hannah's breath caught in her throat. She lunged forward, scooped the baby into her arms. Ava's body was limp. Her head lolled to one side. Her lips were slightly parted, her skin pale and cool. Oh my God, Ryan! Max barked again and jumped up, nudging Ava's back with his nose, gently but repeatedly. Hannah cried out, shaking her daughter gently, then harder. Ava, baby, wake up. Ryan grabbed his phone, calling 911 with trembling hands. Then suddenly, Ava gasped. A small, broken breath. Then another. Her eyes fluttered. A thin wail escaped her throat. She was breathing. Hannah collapsed to the floor, clutching Ava to her chest, sobbing into her tiny shoulder. Paramedics arrived minutes later. They attached sensors, checked vitals, stabilized her. Ava was rushed to the hospital while Hannah held her close in the back of the ambulance. Max stood at the curb as they pulled away, his chest rising and falling, his tail still. He hadn't barked out of confusion. He hadn't barked for attention. He had barked to save a life. And he had done it just in time. The hospital room was quiet except for the soft beep of machines and the occasional shuffle of nurses' feet outside. Hannah sat beside Ava's crib in the pediatric ICU, still shaking, her eyes red and swollen. Ryan paced the room slowly, his hand never leaving the back of his neck. Ava lay connected to monitors, her breathing steady now, her tiny chest rising and falling in rhythm. Doctors had stabilized her within minutes of arrival. Still, the question hung in the air, what happened? Later that morning, a specialist entered the room with a clipboard and a gentle voice. He explained it calmly, but every word hit like a hammer. Ava has a condition called infant sleep apnea, he said. It causes her to stop breathing temporarily during deep sleep. In most cases, the episodes are brief. But tonight it went too long. She wasn't getting enough oxygen. Hannah covered her mouth with both hands, fighting the sob that threatened to escape. The doctor continued. We think this wasn't the first time. Her color, her heart rate fluctuations, those could have been happening for days or weeks. But this time, it progressed longer than her body could recover from on its own. Ryan's voice cracked. So Max, he knew? The doctor nodded. It's not unheard of. Dogs can be incredibly perceptive. They can detect changes in breathing, even shifts in carbon dioxide levels. He may have sensed it night after night and tried to alert you the only way he knew how. Suddenly, everything made sense. The staring, the silent pacing, the way Max refused to leave her side. He wasn't behaving strangely. He was protecting her. While they were asleep, while their baby slipped in and out of breath, Max had been there, watching, waiting, trying to warn them before it was too late. Ryan sat down beside Hannah, burying his face in his hands. We thought he was losing it. Hannah looked at her daughter, then toward the door as if hoping Max could hear her from miles away. He was trying to save her, she whispered. And in the end, he had. They returned home from the hospital 3 days later, emotionally drained but endlessly grateful. Ava was stable now, fitted with a sleep monitor and scheduled for follow-ups with specialists. She would be okay. As they walked through the front door, Max was waiting, just like always. He didn't jump or bark. He simply walked over to Hannah and gently pressed his head against her thigh. Hannah dropped to her knees and wrapped her arms around him, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You knew," she whispered. "You were trying to tell us. I'm so sorry we didn't listen." Max nuzzled into her shoulder, breathing slow and steady, like he had been waiting for this moment of understanding. He didn't need thanks, but he got it anyway. In every hug, every stroke of his fur, every whispered word of love from the family he had never stopped protecting. From that night forward, Max never left Ava's side. He lay beneath her crib again, just like before, but now the family understood why. He was watching her breathing, listening for silence, ready to act, not out of fear, but from pure, unwavering loyalty. Ryan found himself talking to Max more than ever. "You're not just a dog," he said one night, kneeling beside him. "You're her guardian. Our angel." The phrase stuck. Friends began calling Max the miracle dog. A local paper ran a small feature on his story. People sent messages, treats, and gifts. But to the family, none of that mattered as much as the quiet moments. Ava's tiny hand reaching out to grab Max's ear, his soft eyes blinking slowly as he lay beside her. Completely still, completely content. They had almost lost their daughter. But they didn't, because while they slept, Max stayed awake. He listened when no one else did. He acted when no one else knew, too. And he kept fighting, even when no one believed him. So now, every time Ava smiled in her sleep, Max would lift his head slightly, just to check. And when he saw everything was okay, he'd lay it back down, knowing, for tonight at least, his job was done. Sometimes, the most powerful love doesn't come in words. It comes in quiet actions, steady eyes, and a heartbeat that refuses to rest when someone they love is in danger. Max didn't need to be told Ava was in trouble. He didn't need machines or tests. He simply knew, and he never gave up trying to tell them, night after night, breath after breath, until they listened. That's the thing about dogs. Their loyalty doesn't depend on praise or understanding. They just stay. They watch. They protect. And sometimes they save lives in ways science still struggles to explain. Max wasn't trained for emergencies. He wasn't taught to respond to apnea. But in the stillness of the night, he became more than a pet. He became a guardian angel. So the next time your dog seems restless or stares a little too long or acts like something isn't right, pause. Listen, because some heroes don't need to shout to be heard. Some just need you to believe in them. If this story moved you, subscribe to our channel for more true, heartwarming stories of love, loyalty, and the silent heroes who walk among us. On four legs, with hearts bigger than we'll ever know.